Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about middle school science. What is middle school science? What should you try to ensure that your middle school science includes within any particular program or curriculum that you choose? First, I want to say I normally make long videos, but today I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to try to stick under, we'll say, 10 minutes, and we'll see how well I can do. But also I wanted to say that this video is really for those homeschoolers or homeschool parents who have a STEM or STEAM based homeschool. And I say that because if your household is not centered around science, technology, engineering, art, or math. And when I say art, art is used to integrate within the science, technology, engineering, and math. So if your homeschool is not particularly driven by any one of those things, then this video may not be of great value or benefit to you. However, if your homeschool is driven or centered around any one of those areas, then you want to kind of make sure that whatever curriculum or program you're using for your young ones in the middle school ages, I would say 5th grade to about 8th grade, that you may want to consider some of the tips that I am going to share with you today. And that's just to prepare them for the higher level of sciences once they get into the high school age group. And again, that's just preparing them for the potential or possibility or giving them options to major in one of those career fields once they decide they want to go to college. Okay, so I already told you what STEM and STEAM stand for. STEM is science, technology, engineering, math, and STEAM is inclusive of art. Again, art is integrated within those fields, especially in the engineering field. And if you see me looking over, guys, I'm just looking at my timer to kind of make sure that I'm not going over my 10 minutes. If I go over, I tried. But if I didn't go over, then hashtag mom wins. So why is middle school science so critical and important? Well, middle school science is kind of the time where you kind of want to deepen your students' understanding of the various types of sciences. Remember, in elementary school, pre-K through maybe the 4th grade, your students weren't really getting a deep, comprehensive, complete understanding of any one particular science. You may have had a hodgepodge of things, or you may have taught science through experimentation and getting their hands and feet wet, right? And you may have pulled information from various sources to teach them any one particular thing, or you may have chosen one curriculum that focused on one area or subtopic of that particular science. Well, middle school gives your students the opportunity to engage in different aspects of science, from physical science, environmental science, earth space science, all the different types of sciences. And that is basically inclusive of items such as your botany, ecology, geology, biology, your meteorology, oceanography, your human anatomy and physiology, along with maybe some chemistry and physics and things of that nature. So in your middle school science, consider possibly giving them as much information as possible within as many of those sciences as possible. That doesn't mean you're going to do 1 month or 2 months or even 3 months of any one particular science, because if you're diving a little bit deeper, then you may need to take a little bit more time. So consider a curriculum that has multiple types of sciences, and then maybe pulling out unit studies and lap booking and note booking in effort to drive the concepts a little bit deeper into whatever you're teaching. Or if you are choosing any one particular science, let's say you're choosing environmental science, there's so many aspects of environmental science that you can deepen their understanding in any one particular area. But also consider looking at sciences that they are interested in, because that's what sparks interest. If your student is interested in any one particular science, go ahead and start from there. Dive deep, get a firm understanding, use some of the tips that I'll talk about throughout this video in effort to kind of spark their interest, so that when they move up to the high school sciences, they may have something that is of interest to them that they can go beyond the high school stages with. The next tip, keep in mind, and guys, I'm already at 5 minutes. I don't think I'm going to make that 10-minute mark, but we'll see. But middle school science goes beyond memorizing the scientific method. It's more than just knowing the scientific method. It's about consistently using it and practicing it and making it come alive within your homeschool. If you see me looking down, I am looking at some of my notes that I did not want to miss while videotaping this recording. But students should make observations, they should classify, they should use proper scientific vocabulary, they should, or you should try to integrate math within any type of science that you're using. They need to learn how to quantify and predict and report data. They need to also learn how to communicate results and communicate those results not only via writing, but they need to be able to communicate those results orally. That helps with presentation skills. You want to make sure they understand something called understanding variables, okay? You also want to make sure that they're able to interpret the data that they are reporting properly. And we also want to make sure we talk them through the process, or have them talk us through their hypothesis or their prediction, in effort to understand those thought processes, to ensure that logically it makes sense and the information is concrete. Or the information may be abstract, but they should be able to communicate that to you verbally and again in writing. And they should learn how to properly formulate hypothesis, right? So those are just some things that your student, or some things that you may want your student to do within the middle school sciences. But I'm going to give you some specific tips as to what you should include within your curriculum, even if your curriculum doesn't include it itself. You may have to pull resources and pull supplements elsewhere. But again, please make sure, especially if you're a STEM or STEAM-based household, that your homeschool includes the following, or not homeschool, but your science curriculum has or uses the following items. And again, if that program or curriculum may not include that, then you're going to have to do some work outside of that just to make sure that these concepts and these topics are being consistently used and practiced throughout the 5th and 8th grade for your homeschooler. Here are the tips. 1. Consider removing tests from your science journey. And when I say test, I specifically mean fill in the blank and multiple choice test. Have your kids, if you're going to test or quiz them or provide reviews, have those reviews be in complete sentences, complete written format, where they are explaining their thought processes to you in writing and both in paper. Again, eliminate fill in the blank and multiple choice test. Number 2, ensure that your science curriculum, or what you bring into your science, includes a lot of experimentation and investigations using some type of lab. Okay, you may not have a lab within your home, but you can utilize the same concepts that go with the lab for your experiments and your investigations. Teach them about lab safety and things of that nature. Even if you're doing a simple lab or experiment, you may want to, for example, put on the goggles. That's all about safety, especially if you are doing any type of physics as an example. Tip number 3. When you are utilizing experimentation and investigations, and also incorporating lab sciences, you may want to use as many senses as possible. When the student can use their eyes, their ears, in some instances, if it's a experiment, they can use their taste, they can use touch. Allow your student to use as many of their five senses as possible. That just sparks interest, and that just gives them a more firm, or gives them a firmer understanding of the concepts that you're trying to teach, and they won't forget those concepts, because using those senses, for some reason, you can do the research as to why, helps the kids memorize what they're learning a little bit better. Next tip, ensure your science curriculum, or you use the metric system within your science, okay? The metric system is nothing more than an internationally agreed upon decimal system. The next thing, use the scientific method consistently. Don't just use it one time and then you're done. You want to use all parts of the scientific method for as many projects as you can throughout the year. The next tip, allow curiosity and questioning throughout the process. Ask the questions why. What do you think is going to happen? Why do you think it's going to happen? Do you think there are alternatives or other options that may potentially happen based on the experiment or the investigation that we're working on? Ask those questions and allow them to answer those questions aloud. Allow them to explain. Allow them to narrate their thought process throughout the sciences or the assignments that you give them. Next tip, science in middle school should absolutely include the concept of data collection, analyzing the data, and reporting the data. And when they report the data, when they're doing it in writing, it should be via a line graph, bar graph, showing some type of tracking or some type of pattern. And when they are analyzing the data, you may want to have them use different type of methods to analyze information. When they are collecting the data, you may want to show them various research methods that they can use in order to understand what it truly means to gather proper information, and to also utilize appropriate sources, and not only use one source as an example when they are gathering their facts for any one particular project or investigation or experiment. And the study skills that I teach my son includes, I think it's called the 5 cycles of study habits, and I may get it wrong, but it includes preview, attend, review, study, and assess. That's the study cycle. Middle school science should also include sampling and tracking of data for the purpose of kind of determining if there are any links. Are there any similarities? Are there any patterns? Are there any differences? Middle school science, along with my opinion, this also works well with math, middle school math. You may want to incorporate teaching your students Greek and Latin roots. A lot of sciences, a lot of the science terminology and vocabulary have Greek and Latin roots, and if they can understand what those roots mean, it will help them further understand the vocabulary aspect and the word understanding or the word study of any one particular term in science. And in some instances that also works for math, and it also works for language. Okay, so consider incorporating for the year, if you want to do vocabulary within middle school, which I highly recommend, because if your student is going to college, PSAT, SAT, ACT, those tests include vocabulary, and it includes root words, Latin and Greek root words. So this is a great time to start. You don't have to complete any one particular program or do all the words within 1 year. Utilize the middle school years to slowly teach your children that type of information. But again, incorporate having your child learn not only the vocabulary for the science that they are diving into, but also teach them the Greek and Latin root words. And guys, that's it. Okay, 14 minutes. Hashtag mom loses, but that's okay. I wanted to just share with you some of the tips that I have and some of the things that I incorporate or will incorporate within my middle school journey with my son from the 5th grade to the 8th grade. And once my son gets in the 8th grade, we're going to start our first lab science. That's my hope, to start our first lab science, which is going to be biology. And if we can get to it in 7th grade, wonderful. But more than likely, we'll get to it in the 8th grade. And then once your student goes to high school, you still want to incorporate some of these things, but you're going to dive a little bit deeper, and you're going to expect a little bit more from them. But normally, high school sciences, especially if you're going to send your kid off to college, or if you have a college-bound student or a student who is really invested and really likes the STEM or STEAM career tracks or fields, you definitely want to ensure that they have a minimum of 2 lab sciences. And lab sciences are like your biology, your chemistry, your physics. It can also include AP physics, AP chemistry, AP biology, and some other sciences as well. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you learned at least 1 or 2 things that you can incorporate in your homeschool, whether you are science or math based or not. You know, you can still utilize some of these tips just to prepare your son or daughter in better understanding how to logically think about a process, how to analyze information, how to gather information, how to fact find, right? And how to use a systematic approach to looking at information and being curious and questioning that information, both written and orally. And as always, guys, be blessed and make it a great day. Bye.